Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining our webinar today on the 5 budgeting rules to break in 2021 and likely beyond. My name is Natalie Trudell. I'm the marketing manager for CR Group, Acquisitive Company, and we are very excited to have you on and to present to you today. And with that, I am very happy to pass things off to your hosts today. Dr. Vijay Jog is the founder and president of CR Group and the president of Global Business Applications for CR Group's parent company, Acquisitive. And he is joined by Thomas Ironstone, our manager of corporate performance management and business intelligence. So I know they both have a lot of ground to cover today, so I will pass things over to them.
Thank you, Natalie. I think Thomas is going to move the slides. So Thomas, go ahead, please. All right. So thank you, everyone, for joining. I know today we have participants from small firms as well as large firms. But what we're going to talk about today is generic to all CFOs that are struggling with how do I provide value to the organization with the kind of information they need from a planning and budgeting perspective. So when I start these sessions and talk to our clients at the CFO level and sometimes the CEO level, I always say to them that planning and budgeting, which is today's session, really assumes a lot of things. And if these things are not in place, planning and budgeting is going to be difficult. So just to set the stage, planning and budgeting requires data, as you know. Some data is at the granular level, product and customer or channel or brands or funders, what have you. And it also requires a fairly robust ERP system. In the old days, we used to call these accounting systems. Now we call them ERP systems. So in our world, for example, we are a Microsoft shop, so we implement Microsoft systems as an example. But planning and budgeting is kind of independent of ERP systems. Doesn't matter how small you are, how large you are, what systems you use, as long as you have data that is required for planning and budgeting, we are fine with it. At least the data problem is gone. Okay. Next, please, Thomas. So our job always has been that we help clients based upon this level 7 methodology transform how they operate for growth and really better decision making. And planning and budgeting being one of those tools or one of those frameworks that allow for better decision making. And this is really the preview of the CFO. To allow us to do that, and given our clients come from, again, as I said, very small clients to very, very large clients, we went out and we have, in the last 20 years with our knowledge in this business, selected for our clients 4 solutions that are out there. If you type budgeting solutions in Google, for example, you'll get like 300 of them, if not more, because this is such a pervasive framework and technology required. So we went out and we chose 4 solutions that Thomas will talk a little bit about later on that we believe will fit based upon the needs and the budget of our clients. Again, from small to very large. Again, we'll talk more about that later on. Next. So let's step back a little bit before we go into tools and solutions. The challenges CFOs are having, especially given the COVID situation, because it requires agility for decision making, is something we hear from CFOs. We did a survey of our client CFOs and asked them, what kind of is bothering you these days with respect to your function or your job or your finance team? And not surprisingly, same things come about. We need better reporting. We need better projection cash flows. We are using too much Excel. One CFO always says, I was in Excel hell before you gave me a solution, right? We need reporting. Okay. So we need collaboration across teams because otherwise we are doing lots of, how should I put it, emails and lots of Excel spreadsheets going back and forth. And we need better forecasting. We need to do it every 3 months, for example. We are too much manual, on and on and on. So we know challenges are out there and we need to provide solutions to our clients when they come to us to say, I have challenges, please solve it for me. Next. Next, yeah. So we say, well, what are the challenges? And I'm sure I'm not saying anything new to you folks. These challenges, and we took kind of the top 7 challenges that we come across in our client space. First challenge, of course, is, oh my God, how many spreadsheets I have to deal with before I create a budget? Whether you are small, whether you are medium sized, whether you are large, challenge is the same. The larger you are, worse is the problem. Okay. Number 2, most of the time, participants seem to be unclear of the budgeting cycle. They get emails, they are not sure what needs to be done. They're given Excel spreadsheets to fill in, and they fill it. So, and then they don't know whether that filling is correct or not. Then finance gets involved and says, we don't believe what you're telling us. Let's have a conversation. Well, if you're face to face in an office, it's easy. And now you're all remote. It's kind of difficult. So we need to automate that process. Number 3, I call it the 1159 problem. I need to provide to my board or my leadership team a budget, and people are still inputting data. And I don't know what's the latest, and I don't know what version 2. And we have clients which have budget version 1.0, final, pre-final, BJ, date. And there are 17 spreadsheets that are in my network directory. Can't work. Number 4, we are now convinced that organizations need to start thinking about driver-based budgets, not just dollar-based. We cannot just say, this is our salary expense. People are asking us, tell me what you're forecasting for your own employees and what you expect to hire your new employees. And I want to make sure that all the, the CPP and EHT calculations are in my forecasted budget. Number 5, finance frustration. I know some of you may have it, that people just don't respond because they say I have a job to do. Okay. Number 6, sometimes, not all the time, accounts are not synchronized with the accounting system, and that causes a problem. And the last one is finance's bane of existence, so to speak. We are recreating reports, doing a cut and paste from Excel into PowerPoint, presenting it to the board, and the board then wants to drill down. And all we have is a JPEG in a PowerPoint. Well, that doesn't do us very good in front of leadership team or the board. And we need to kind of solve those challenges, because these challenges, I'm sure have been solved, because we have now technology to solve it. Next. So how do we overcome the challenges, and what rules, I must say, we need to break now to achieve success? In terms of, this, I have a systemic shift that we will be working remote. 2 megabyte worksheets going around in the email is simply not going to work. Opening Excel spreadsheets on the network in a collaborative way is going to be difficult, Teams notwithstanding. It's just going to be a challenge. The more remote we are, the more challenges we'll have in this collaborative requirement of a planning and budgeting cycle, especially if you do quarterly forecasting. Okay, next. So what is that got to do with the CFO? Well, a lot, because I think more is being asked of the CFOs beyond kind of balance sheet income statement reporting. They're asked to say, well, this is a great forecast, but is it linked to strategy? What do we have to do to move this needle, so to speak? Can we make changes to prices? Can we make changes to cost? Is our cost structure right-sized? And that has really led to a revolution in what we call FP&A, and CFOs are leading the charge. They are saying now, I can't be reactive anymore. I need to be proactive. I need to be ready for questions that I know are going to be asked. And I have to start thinking about, can I predict better? The last thing we want is surprises, okay? And given the world is now more dynamic than ever before. Next. Number 2, we need to stop working in silos. Too many businesses are still run segmented. There is a sales and marketing function, and they are doing their own budgeting. Then there are cost centers, they are doing their own budgeting, and they are segmented. So that's not going to work. We need to start thinking about collaborative bottom-up planning, and the planning platform has to always speak with one central source for the truth. So my point is, gone are the days of silos. We need to ensure that we require a front-to-back, fully integrated system that sort of goes across the value chain. Customers at the top of the value chain, the product services we sell to them, the delivery folks who are going to deliver to them, and all the shared services functions that are going to support for this business to happen. Okay. Next. Number 4, we cannot anymore rely on dollar-based budgets. We need to start understanding volumetrics, as we call it, that cost work, and when work is cost, that cost. So we need to start figuring out, do we have any drivers inherent in our planning function that how should I say, result in cost, and or if we sell some products that are in eaches versus cases as an example, then the kind of drivers we need to have data on is going to be more deeper than otherwise. Okay. For other example, I have a client where they are now going from a large order, small client business to a small orders, large client business because of the internet revolution or through their web store. Transaction volume has gone up significantly. Their back office is completely unprepared for that. So there are delays in deliveries or delays from a customer perspective, and that's impacting their NPS scores. And the CEO asked in other day to the CFO, well, how did you not predict it? How come you don't have enough people in your accounting function fully knowing we are going to the web store? Well, their budget was annual, and when the budget is fixed, they had no flexibility to hire new people. So CFOs now need to really start understanding drivers in order to plan and forecast through this uncertainty and changes to the business models. Next. So quite clearly, if data is now everything, if data has to be timely centralized, then we need to start thinking about how do we take reins to ensure that we have the right data at the right granularity so that our planning and budgeting function or a process is going to be world-class. So we need to start thinking about how many systems we collect data, how do we centralize it, and how do we use this centralized single version of the truth data directly into a platform and not go from Excel system to an Excel spreadsheet that is manipulated with VLOOKUPs and HLOOKUPs and then into another system. That's not going to work going forward. Smaller you are, absolutely, Excel would work. Larger you are, Excel won't work. Smaller you are, but more dynamic you are, Excel won't work. So again, we have to choose the right framework and the right tool to solve the right challenges that you have in front of you. Okay, next. So that's what we now hear this word about digital transformation. Everywhere I go these days, go virtually, not physically, of course, people are going to say, I need to be Vijay. We are in a digital transformation phase. So gone are the days where you are using Excel and data dumps and homegrown system tables and disconnected accounting from CRM to CPM to reporting process. It's not going to work in the future as long as you're a dynamic enterprise. If you're a static enterprise, nothing changes. Same number of people coming to work, selling to the same clients with no price pressure and no requirement for change because yeah, it's working. Why break it? Okay? However, if there is dynamism in your firm, this non-digital transformation is not the way to go. Next. So, question then, of course, has been, what is the right technology to help me get to this nirvana stage where I have one version of the truth, I have a collaborative platform, I'm talking with same people without having to do emails, I'm not at 11:59 collecting all kinds of spreadsheets and Excel spreadsheets, making sure all the formulas are right, and I hope my budget is right. Okay, we need to start thinking about new ways to looking at it. Then the question is, well, what is it that these budgeting systems are supposed to provide? And what is right for my company, given my stage, given my size, given my requirements with respect to forecasting, planning, and budgeting? I will now hand it over to Thomas because that's where he's now going to spend some time with you to say, well, how do you go about answering these two questions? Okay. Again, if you have any questions with what I said, put it in the chat, and I'm sure at the end of the session or towards the end of the session, I will try to answer those questions. So, Thomas, over to you, please.
All right, thanks, Vijay. So as I mentioned, we'll be going through the technology leg to the stool for this part of the presentation. So given the context of what Vijay has set for us, what do the latest budgeting and planning platforms bring to the table to help address some of those challenges? First off, this particular layer is really the accessibility collaboration layer. And this has become so important these days, especially with the work from home shift. So first off, we can no longer send spreadsheets over email, or we're not sitting down in an office with individuals, as Vijay said. We need platforms that allow us to actually interact with the team, get reports out, get contributions from the managers or the program heads to help plan out or update forecasts. So from a functionality perspective, when you're looking at these new platforms, accessibility and on the go, so being able to get reports on your mobile device, on your tablet, not just at your workstation, being able to get those timely updates is quite critical. Broadcasting, so this is more pushing stuff out to people. So as opposed to them having to go, as an example, to a network, look up a report, or filter through different mail outs, what's happening with broadcasting is it's actually pushing out alerts, whether it's from a workflow standpoint. As an example, someone submitted their budget, the director gets notified that the manager reporting to them has completed their budget. Now it's time to review. This can also work in the sense of pushing out reports. So as an example, as we finish the budget and we're going through, say, reforecasting or variance tracking, what the broadcasting might do as well is push out monthly reports to see how are we tracking against budget. So getting those pushed out reports and analytics go a long way to help the organization achieve their spending goals, as well as making sure that they're hitting their revenue targets and tracking that as well. Collaboration. So it's kind of amazing, I guess, in the past year or so. Some anecdotes here. We've seen clients that don't have a platform that were using Excel, and the old world where they used to sit down with the finance team used to sit down with the different departments and help them plan out their budget. They'd sit down in an office and plan this out. And that is not working these days. So trying to get work through Excel, trying to prepare these budgets, not having that interaction has stifled the whole budgeting and planning process. So with these new platforms, what they're doing is they're allowing to go to a more distributed approach, being able to provide input templates that are meaningful to the managers that are involved in the process. They can access it through the web, prepare their budgets in a very intuitive format, and then all that is automatically rolled up into the overall budget. And they can also interact in it, share comments and things of that nature. So this helps move along the whole virtual workplace, having a tool that promotes collaboration. Scalability for business needs. So obviously, as an organization grows, this is quite critical. So of course, no organization just plans to, stay static forever. So as you grow, there's new opportunities. You want the platform to be able to grow with you. So you're not necessarily just looking for a classic budgeting tool or building stuff out in Excel. You need something that will help scale as you, as an example, grow with new programs or projects or product lines or customer bases or channels, things of that nature. You need to have a platform to help grow with you. And especially in today's world where organizations might be, say, doing that e-commerce shift, going from bricks and mortar to e-commerce, be able to have a platform that can adapt and grow with you to be able to build out your different budgeting templates and reports to meet those new business needs. Now, the next layer is mainly around structure and controls. So this is a huge piece when you're adopting a modern budgeting and planning application. So as you know, when you're in Excel, you're sending spreadsheets back and forth over email, or it's on a directory. Having that structure and control can be a bit challenging. And so knowing when someone's completed something, or they have to, say, send an email as an example, or looking up where the latest file is, or knowing whose turn it is to review or update that budget file. That can be very, very challenging and cumbersome in the Excel world. So with these new applications, they allow you to actually structure out, customize workflow and process and controls to know that whose step in the process it is, and also intuitively know when it's your step to be alerted that it's your turn in the process, and also not skipping your turn to know something's locked down and you're not editing the budget when it's not your turn to review or edit. The other layer to this is the automation part. So normally where we're dumping data out to Excel, preparing financials or management reports, and then pushing it out by email, very, very manual process. So with these systems, because if they're integrated with your ERP and you have the logic built out for your financials and your management reports, that process can be highly automated in the sense that the finance team will go through their month-end process, they're posting their entries, they can do their review in the application of their financials, and then they can publish out the reports and do that in a very automated fashion, as opposed to doing the old Excel world where you're relying on your formulas, dumping out data, and then obviously risk of human error in that process as well. The next layer to this is the interaction piece. So the business users, the department heads, extending out beyond the finance function, is the folks that want to get into the tools and reports and be able to use more self-service. So obviously adopting these applications and being in the cloud or using a more structured software platform is the idea of being able to put the tools into the hands of the business so they can review the reports, drill down into the details, ask questions and get answers without having to constantly ping the finance team to say, oh, can I get these transactional details, or I don't trust this number, what's going into it? And I'm sure we've all heard these things, and being able to put it into the hands of the business users so they have the transparency, they can drill down into the details, they can filter, they can go back to prior periods, look at trends, and not have to put so much onus on the finance team to do this very manual process. The other aspect to this is the exception reporting. So when we're tracking month to month and we know the targets are set from the budgeting process, and maybe we've updated our forecasts, but being able to spot anomalies and trends that could be happening. So are we falling behind on our target from a revenue standpoint? Are we on track to overspend on a particular category? Trying to get those insights in a very manual Excel world can be very challenging. While it's possible, it's kind of cumbersome to build out those the formulas, and then also to rely to go into Excel to know how I'm tracking, and it really puts the pressure on the individual to know this and to actively look. However, in these platforms, leveraging the concept of exception-based reporting and alerts, once you know what that logic is and what those thresholds are for, say, triggering an alert to let someone know, oh, you're on track to potentially overspend in this area, or you're on track to maybe miss that particular revenue target. Those are things that can be automated and pushed out to the individuals so that they're more proactive, as opposed to responding after the fact when they have a lot of ground to cover, or when they've already overspent, and then we hit issues. The next aspect to this from a planning perspective is the whole what if analysis and reforecasting. So this day and age, while it was always important before, the concept of reforecasting becomes even more and more important. So with the dynamic nature of different industries that we operate in and how they're affected and how they're evolving, being able to reforecast, change assumptions, do what ifs based on what could happen, provides a lot of value. So these applications, obviously if we're going beyond Excel, trying to do what ifs and forecasts and be able to compare and contrast different scenarios in Excel, that is a very cumbersome process and very time consuming to provide that type of analysis on an agile basis. So with the platforms that we look at in our line of business are platforms that allow organizations to do these types of scenario planning, to do what-if analysis, so they can actually compare and contrast these reports and understand what the impact will be on the business, and then also get updated forecasts real time based on the updated results that come in on a month-to-month basis. Another aspect to these applications that provide a lot of value are top-down budget entry. So as we know, there's nothing that's purely bottom-up, and there's nothing that's purely top-down. And when we try to do that in Excel, it can be very difficult, obviously, with formulas and being able to say, okay, all of the contributors have prepared their budgets, and these are the total values they come up with, and then the executive team might review and say, oh no, we need to increase that or decrease that. Now having to ask all of the end users, or sorry, all the budget contributors to go back and update all of their detailed budgets can be very challenging and difficult. So the concept in these tools where you can do some top-down budget entry allows us to make adjustments at the executive level, where we need to increase a target or decrease a target and actually flush that down to the details. Having that functionality can provide a lot of value to organizations and acts as a huge time saver. Multi-company, multi-currency, obviously organizations, they could be growing, going through acquisitions, they could be in new markets. And obviously, when we're operating in Excel and going through consolidations and even addressing eliminations can be a very difficult challenge, or at least a very manual challenge. So with these applications, they allow you to scale. So as you add new entities, if your organization's growing, going through a merger, acquisition of some sort, as you're adding in components to your organization, being able to scale within the platform, add those new entities, factor in any intercompany components. And then also on the multi-currency side, so of course, if we're in new markets, we might be incurring expenses in multiple currencies, or even selling into different markets that are in different currencies. Being able to make assumptions on those exchange rates in Excel at the very detailed level can be quite challenging. So with these platforms, what they allow us to do is actually from the treasury function to understand what's our currency exposure based on our different input costs and expenditures, and even the markets that we're selling into, and be able to understand how much currency do we have on hand in these varying currencies to allow us to plan better from a treasury standpoint. So these tools can provide a lot of value in that sense. Next up, as Vijay mentioned earlier, getting away from the dollar-based budgets, getting more driver-based. So with these applications, they allow you to set up your different rate tables and your different volumetrics and build out your calculations. So it allows you to actually flex your budget and run different assumptions. So if you know that particular input costs will increase, or as I mentioned, even things like currency, or understanding a number of required staff to be able to deliver on a particular demand, being able to build out your budgeting and planning and forecasting model on a driver-based basis can provide a lot of value to understand what are your different levers from a financial standpoint and a non-financial standpoint. And then finally, last but not least, is the template designer functionality, and this is huge. So as you imagine, as an organization, you have your own view of the world, and in some cases it's sort of your organization's competitive advantage as well, because you think very uniquely, obviously understanding best practices and industry standards, but you might have a sort of a specific way how you think through from a workflow standpoint or a planning standpoint. And so some of these modern budgeting applications provide this template designer functionality to set up your templates in such a way that are more meaningful to your organization, as opposed to being force fit into a box. And this can be more important to some types of organizations than others, but it's something to look out for as well, because sometimes organizations that have this very strong need don't consider it, and then if they get force fit into a box, quickly find out that they'll outgrow their platform. So understanding all of those different pieces of functionality As Vijay mentioned earlier, we've been in this CPM space for a long time, and we've done our research, and we've looked at different platforms that are out there that will help meet the needs for varying organizations that are varying in size, varying in industry, and varying levels of complexity in terms of their needs. So we have a platform called Rapid Start, which is more geared towards the small to medium-sized enterprise. And this is very simplistic needs and provides some structure. It just allows individuals that have need a planning tool, but don't necessarily need something that is super highly sophisticated, just help to put some structure around the planning process. Next, we have IDU Concept. It is a Gartner recognized platform, and with this tool, it's we thought with this one, it's more based on the Microsoft stack. So it allows you to obviously do all of your planning and budgeting and varying types of modules, as well as leveraging Power BI from a dashboarding concept as well. So a very nice, powerful platform. Next up is Board. And with Board, it's truly a unique platform. It's really a modeling tool that gives you a toolkit to be able to build out your different budgeting needs and your reporting needs, as well as stuff that's sort of outside of the box, thinking of scorecards and very customized workflow and things of that nature. It's a very unique platform. And finally, Workday. Workday planning is I'd say not as heavy on the modeling as, say, a solution like Board. However, it is a very nice, strong planning tool that allows you to build out your budgets and sheets and structure the approval process and do your different versioning as well as to integrate to your different ERP systems. So multiple options that are available. Now, from a functionality perspective, these are some of the key pieces of functionality, as we mentioned earlier, that you should be looking out for based on your different requirements. So I'll sort of point out just some specific differences. Of course, each of these platforms can integrate to your different data sources. So whether it's your ERP, CRM, data warehouses, you name it. So even flat files for that matter. So we normally with these applications, we want to make sure that this isn't a tool that's sitting outside of your other processes. These are tools that will be able to complement your existing systems. Obviously, the what-if analysis and reforecasting across the board, the drill down, self-service and reporting, automated financial statements. So some of the differences here, I'd probably say, are more around the workflow process control part. So with Rapid Start, which is more on the smaller end, there's a very sort of a simplistic pre-built structure that's there that meets very simple needs. However, it can go a long way for an organization of a smaller size. With IDU, it's configurable. You can set up your approval process and your hierarchies, so which goes a long way. And the same thing with Workday. With Board, you can do very, let's say, highly configured, customized workflow that if you want to display things visually from an approval process or even steps in the process, Board provides your canvases so you can actually lay out the different steps of your process so you can have it very visual to the end user. So very unique in that sense. And they all have data visualization, dashboarding capabilities, but coming from different tools. So as I mentioned, IDU, it would leverage, say, the Microsoft stack. So if you're using Power BI as an example, it would complement that very well. Board has its own BI capabilities. So it's an all-in-one CPM BI tool. So it has the same toolkit that you use for planning and budgeting. You can use to build out different visualizations and dashboards. With Workday, it does have dashboarding capability as well. So it's not as a big data like the other applications, but it does provide the ability to do visualizations based on your financials and some non-financials. Now here's where we start seeing a bit of differences. Obviously, collaboration across the board. This is a must-have, especially in this day and age. However, from a broadcasting standpoint, so what this is pushing stuff out to end users. So as I talked about the example of setting alerts, exceptions, pushing out reports, this is all very important. So with Rapid Start, because it's really geared towards sort of simplistic needs, having your structure out of the box isn't really typically a big need for smaller organizations, because there's usually only a few people that are involved in the process. So it's not really a need for an organization that size. However, once you start sort of scaling up, looking at some of the bigger platforms and which are geared more towards larger organizations, that's where you start seeing that we need to start pushing stuff out to people to keep them more engaged. So that's where you see it more on the far right-hand side of this. From a structural standpoint, with Rapid Start, it's again geared towards smaller structures. So there's a limit on accounts and projects. However, with the other applications, they're unlimited. So number of accounts, number of projects or dimensions, you can build that out as you need. From a modeling capability, between IDU, Board, and Workday, they all work somewhat differently. Board is like really a modeling tool where Workday is more sheet-based and building out your different sheets and formulas, and IDU is also quite structured in the sense that you have your different sections and modules, and you can build out your different calculations and formulas. So different ways to get to the same place, but different toolkits. On the predictive analytics side, so this is sort of a hot button topic, and obviously today's day and age as well. You know, the need for this can vary by organization or industry, but the different platforms provide this in different ways. So IDU has machine learning capabilities. So you can set your historical range and set your time horizons and build out different regressions within the platform. However, Board also has, I'd say, a little bit of a broader predictive analytics engine where you have multiple statistical functions. And so it just depends on really what your need is. So with IDU, you're able to set those rules and logic, and you can update those assumptions, rinse and repeat, and go through that cycle. Where Board has a separate module based on predictive analytics. So again, based on whatever your needs are, different tools can satisfy those needs in different ways. And then deployment options, virtually all platforms are cloud. If you have an on-premise requirement, Board is really an application that can be on-premise, installed on-premise if required. And from a self-service setup perspective, of course, the smaller application is Rapid Start is more geared to be self-service. So essentially, the setup costs to get it going, and it's more geared to get up and running quite quickly for very simplistic needs. However, the other platforms, obviously, we need to understand what your needs are and make sure that the tool is tailored to meet your current processes. So configuring it in such a way. So again, different methods of deployment. Now to quickly go through each of the applications, I just have a slide for each of them. From a features standpoint, Rapid Start, again, geared towards smaller organizations. It provides a lot of still provides all of the modules that you would typically need. So preparing your P&L, your cash flow, balance sheet projections, as well as having supporting multiple entities. So if you do have multiple companies, Rapid Start can support that up to 5. And you can also build out your different payroll planning modules, so doing all of your salary and benefit type calculations, as well as doing other types of planning, such as CapEx planning. With Adaptive, it has multiple components to its suite. So with Workday Planning, there's the Workday Adaptive Planning component, which is really the core component of the suite, which allows you to build out your different sheets and your budgets. So you'd have all your standard sheets, your detailed cube sheets, and you can build out different types of complex calculations, as well as doing all of your personnel planning and such. Discovery is the data visualization component, so it links into the adaptive Workday Adaptive Planning module to display all of your plans and financials and be able to do that variance analysis. There is a consolidation tool in there as well. So if you're multiple entities, you need to consolidate, handle intercompany eliminations, things of that nature. And adaptive reporting, which there's the ability to build out financial statements within the tool, as well as leverage the Office add-in that Adaptive has to even build out your financials in Excel, Word, and PowerPoint. And then from an integration perspective, as you'll see, the ability to tap into different ERPs to pull in the data into the platform for your financials and all the structures that you require from a planning standpoint. With Board, this platform is an all-in-one business intelligence and corporate performance management tool. So as I mentioned earlier, it's really a toolkit type approach. So it gives essentially tools that you can build out different types of applications. However, similar as I was just mentioning from an integration standpoint, Board can tap into virtually any data source. So your ERP, your CRM, data warehouses. You might have different operational databases. You can load in flat files, and then it allows you to build out all of your structure within the model, so all of your different hierarchies, all of your different business logic, and then start building out different applications, say on a BI standpoint, scorecards, dashboards, reporting and analytics. Specifically from a performance management standpoint, allows you to build out highly configured templates and workflow around budgeting, planning, and forecasting. You can do profitability modeling and analytics, strategic management, so balanced scorecards, strategy maps, initiative tracking, things of that nature, financial consolidation. And then on the predictive analytics side, this is the BEAM component, which allows you to do forecasting, simulation, clustering, and a variety of different statistical functions. Finally, IDU. So with this platform, where this is different from the other tools is it's truly all built on the Microsoft stack. So it leverages a SQL backend as well as all of the Microsoft reporting engine. So obviously leveraging Excel and stuff for reporting, but also Power BI for dashboarding. Then from a planning standpoint, a variety of different modules that are available inside the platform, doing simple standard type budgeting, GL-based budgeting, doing very itemized level budgeting. So if you need to have different accounts that have varying levels of detail to plan out specific items, be able to do allocations based on units or different volumetrics, be able to do your personnel type planning at the employee level, doing percentage-based allocations. You can do dynamic reallocations. So if you have different rules set up based on different targets and have that reallocated out to different groups in the organization. And then of course, CapEx planning. So all of your asset planning and purchases and doing your depreciation calculations. And then even doing project-based planning as well. All right, so that being said, we'll wrap up with some questions. So we do have the questions panel within GoToWebinar, so please feel free to input some questions. We'll stay on the line for a bit so we can address some of those questions. However, please note, we do encourage you to check out our budgeting assessment page. So if you go to crgroup.com/budgeting-needs, you can sign up for a budgeting assessment. So as you know, there's different applications, different functionalities. And so we've been in this industry for many years, and we've seen these applications being used across multiple industries of varying sizes. So we'll be able to help you guide you in the right direction as far as what makes the most sense for your organization. So please do check that out, crgroup.com/budgeting-needs. And also don't forget to check out our great resources that are available for the CFO Bootcamp series. Go to crgroup.com/CFO-bootcamp. And digital transformation, a 7-step journey for the model CFO. Go to crgroup.com/blog. All right, so I'm just going to go to the questions panel. We'll see what's here. All right, actually this question is for Vijay. So it says, Vijay, we would like to move to a driver-based planning process, but don't know where to start. Sorry, I got to see the other half of this. Are you able to help improve our current processes in addition to implementing these platforms?
Oh, great question, and you're putting me on the spot here. In essence, driver-based budgeting really is for organizations where volume of transaction has significant implications on the entire cost structure, and or they really want to budget at the granular level. So I'll give an example of a client where actually Thomas is implementing right now. Because of COVID, they sold their building, and everybody has kind of moved to their native town, so to speak, from East Coast to the West Coast. It's clear to them that once COVID finishes, now that the building is gone, people still have to meet each other. So they're trying to put together a travel budget template that is going to estimate X number of trips that could be short, Y number of trips that could be medium, Z number of trips that could be long. And for each short, medium, and long, they're saying short would take, $500. Calgary to Vancouver, $500. Calgary to St. John's, long trip, maybe $1,500. So companies are now starting to think about what causes cost, as opposed to saying in the old world, travel, yeah, I think let's just put $300 per person, without knowing why we are pushing it. The second thing this driver-based planning does, and I'll be very short, is now that we know that we are budgeting for 800, 300, 500 trips, I can go to my travel agent, if that's what I'm still using, and say, prepare us an estimate or a quote if we give you this type of business. So I can now go to my purchasing group or my procurement group who manages my service contracts and say, negotiate with this third-party travel agent, as an example, to get us a better price, because we are forecasting 300 trips. So organizations are going through this driver-based budgeting for all kinds of reasons, but also being proactive, and then of course hold people accountable. Hey, you said you'll do 20 trips, you only did 10, what happened? Which is great, by the way. I'm not making them do 20 trips, but also gives you another level of granular governance if that's what your business dictates. I hope I answered the question, Thomas.
Yep, that's great, actually. And as well, I have you here, I'll also ask you this question that just came up. Who should be responsible for data sources and how they connect? Is that finance or IT?
Hopefully IT reports to finance, so it's a moot point. I'm joking, by the way. I think we need to separate IT from IM and from IS, meaning IT sometimes is given tasks that they are not really prepared for because they don't even know our information system or our accounting systems. So many organizations now are having in finance a financial systems team, and if you're large, a big team, if you're small, one person, who understands all the systems that have data. And then they would liaise with the data vendor, for lack of a better word, a systems vendor, or internal IT team who may have a database system, database developer, because the IT team does not know the kind of data we require for planning, budgeting, forecasting, and visualization. So it really is a joint function between finance and IT, but more and more, finance is having a financial systems team or a person who understands all the systems that are out there, and then in charge of getting that data in one place or getting that data into a planning and budgeting platform, as an example.
All right, thank you very much. And last question here. We have a data visualization tool that is heavily embedded in our organization. Can these solutions fit into our existing architecture without duplicating needs? Vijay, if you don't mind, do you want to tackle that one as well?
Sure, that's for me. Okay. It really depends upon the tool. We have organizations we also come across. We have data warehouses pre-built. So for example, if you are married to Power BI and your needs are only planning and budgeting, then IDU type tool would allow you to leverage Power BI, as an example. But if you're in some other tools, for example, Alteryx or tools like that, or Tableau, most of these tools would allow Tableau to access it, but not really. So if you're using Workday Planning or Board, then they have to coexist. We have clients who have Power BI, of course, Excel, Power BI, Tableau, and Board, because they know different tools satisfy different needs of the organization. So unless I know specifically what the current architecture is or current toolkit is, it's hard to answer a kind of a generically a question, answer to that question.
Excellent. So it looks like those are all of our questions for today. Vijay, thank you very much for joining us for the presentation. And for folks today, if you want to look for more resources, please go to crgroup.com/betterbudgeting. And we do encourage you, if you have any questions, to fill out the form on our assessment page to help you on that journey to finding the right CPM platform to meet your needs. Well, Vijay, thank you very much.
And thank you, Thomas. Well done. And no questions for you. That is not nice. Thank you, guys. Thanks for joining. I know time is a valuable commodity. So thank you very much. All the best.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you both for that wonderful presentation. Certainly a lot of great insights and information in under an hour. Tom mentioned, I know we skimmed the surface of these different solutions and there are a lot of things to consider. So please visit our website. There's some further information on these solutions. There is a recorded webinar that details each one of them. And as Tom said, you can book a free budgeting assessment with Tom to review your needs and discuss your options there. So that may be worthwhile for a lot of you on the call today. We really appreciate your time, as Vijay said. We know it's a commodity. Hopefully this was valuable to you. And if you have any further questions, please reach out to us directly. Thank you so much again, everyone.